Welcome to Give a Heck. I am your host, Dwight Heck, and for much of my life, lived my life in quiet desperation, wondering how I was going to pay the bills, take vacations, save for retirement, and one day wondering if I would get off the hamster wheel of life and have purpose. A life that most of society lives, which takes us to work, then home, then repeat, and pays us hopefully enough just to survive. The harsh truth that most live with more months than money and have no idea how to live life on purpose, not by accident. This ensures the mass majority are living not just financially broke, however emotionally and mentally as well due to financial pressures. In each episode, I will introduce you to thoughts, ideas, and guests that can help you to learn how you too can live life on purpose, not by accident. Good day and welcome to Give a Heck. On today's show, I welcome Desiree Maya, or AKA Coach Des. Desiree Maya is the founder of Born Unbreakable, a keynote speaker, a six-figure earner, and host of the Born Unbreakable Podcast. With 15 plus years of entrepreneurial experience, she successfully challenges and inspires people to take action and believe in themselves as part of designing a life and profession they truly love. Desiree has taken years of setbacks, disappointments, and successes and used them to fuel powerful yet simple lessons that will help anyone face their fears, crush their self-limiting beliefs, and embrace their uniqueness. As a performance improvement consultant, certified coach, and change management expert, Desiree applies systems and processes that keep her clients on track. With a degree in political science, healthcare, social issues, she is well versed and able to tackle the issues that plague our society today, and has a kind, nurturing approach to helping people set goals and to get where they want to be. With health and wellness, fitness, and fun being at her core, she incorporates intentional work-life balance every single day and shares it openly with her clients as a way to connect. Desiree resides in Las Vegas, Nevada. I'd like to welcome you to the show, Desiree. Thanks so much for agreeing to come on and share with us some of your life journey.
Thank you so much for having me, Dwight. It's always a little bit of that feeling when someone's talking about you that I start sweating and turning red, and oh my gosh, it's always hearing a little bit about yourself always makes me a little bit uncomfortable, but I appreciate such the kind introduction.
Well, you're a phenomenal person. Listeners, I was on Desiree's show recently. She's an amazing storyteller, so buckle up and hold on because you're in for a treat. I can't wait to learn more about Desiree because obviously when I was on her show, it was more about myself. So I so appreciate you agreeing to come on to my show, Desiree. One of the things, though, that I focus on, and you and I have talked about quite a bit, is a person's origin story. Originally, I used to explain why it was part of my drive was the Marvel and Star Wars and everybody, all these movie series that start in the middle and you keep you hanging and then they try to go backwards. And to me, that's not the way to start life. The way to start and get to know anything, any story about, doesn't matter if it's an event or a person, is where did it start? What is Desiree's earliest recollections of her life? What things in your earliest mindset triggered you to do specific things all the way up to where you are today? So if you could do me a favor, what key things from your childhood to adulthood led you to where you're at currently?
It was so interesting listening to you ask the question. The first thing that came to my mind was my father. It was like the first thing, because I just have so many memories of him in different ways as a child. And I lost him when I was 9 years old. So it's interesting because it was such a finite looking at, my life now that I haven't had him for so long. It was foundational, because when we think about our adolescents, who are the first influencers that we have before we get to where we are today, where we can expand our communities and our mentorship and, school, people at school is your family, who's in your immediate household. And I grew up in a very strict household. My dad he was an immigrant from the Philippines, and he came to the United States. He met my mom in Hawaii. And so that was their first, meeting, and their love story was born there. But he joined the military. So I grew up in a military family. He was the oldest of 6 kids. My mom was the youngest of 9 kids. So there was a lot of people growing up that I was around, but it was a pretty strict Catholic household, a lot of rules, um, very academic. I think part of the instilled in me, because he did come from another country, was this notion of what it meant to be successful in the United States. And so early on, I knew I had a culture that was something other than being American, but it was so instilled in me, um, the privilege it was to be American. So even in my household, and I kind of have a little bit of regrets about that. Like, my parents spoke Tagalog. That was the language that they were speaking, but I was taught to, speak in English, answer in English. And going back, I was like, oh, I wish I would have learned more, of the language, because then I would have been more well-versed now. Instead of just understanding it, I would have been more versatile. But yeah, it was a strict household. um, and I would redo my homework as a child. My dad taught me how to pray, and he taught me what it meant to, if you don't have answers, that you could always, seek them just by sitting down with yourself and asking the Lord, and this kind of stuff. So that was kind of the early on experience. And honestly, I think one of the first pivotal moments that I had was losing my dad. Like I mentioned, it being not, I was 9 years old, and having this kind of steady figure in my life that grounded me in a lot of ways. It was difficult for so long, because seeing other people that I was in school with have that figure, and for me not to have that at all these moments, other moments that I had in life, to not have him, was hard. It was always this feeling of, um am I making him proud? Am I doing the things that he would have wanted me to, that he instilled in me when I was young, that kind of thing. So that was probably one of the biggest memories that I have from my childhood, is that what he instilled in me, but then how painful it was to lose him.
Wow. Yeah, I can certainly appreciate what you're saying. It's you basically, I'm reading my notes here. Like you said, he was, everybody has a foundational person in their life, and your dad was that to you, and wondering whether or not he's proud of you. I've gotten to know you over the last couple months. I'm proud of what you've accomplished. I don't know everything, but I'm sure, I guarantee you, he's smiling down on you, and proud of your accomplishments and how you connect with people and how you tell stories, and you're very kind. That's a winner in itself. That puts you at the top of the heap. There's so many people in our society, they just aren't kind. So obviously, at 9 years of age, nobody wants to lose their dad, but he still instilled enough things in you, as you mentioned. Ask the Lord, or ask yourself, sit with yourself.
Mhm.
Just that stuff is important for people to understand, that you don't always have to seek answers outside of, in the committee of they, that's being society. Sometimes, I grow up in a staunch Catholic family too. But prayer, for me, it took me a long time, until I was in my probably early 20s, mid 20s, before I realized that prayer was talking to God, and getting the answers back is me. It's me getting the answers back. There's guidance there, obviously, but I needed to learn that prayer. Or for those listening that aren't religious, that's fine. Talk to the universe. Sometimes just talking out loud, not necessarily just laying there, sitting there, but talking out loud, makes it so that you have an easier time accepting what's going on, maybe you won't find the answer, but it might give you some peace so you can go look for the answer.
Mhm.
I really appreciate that. So yeah, with 6 kids, your dad, you said 9 kids, your mom.
Mhm.
Yeah, I don't know if we talked about that. My dad's one of 18, my mom's one of 9. So I have lots of relatives. It's like a smorgasbord. As we age, though, I don't talk to a lot of them. They all have their own families, their own kids, their own grandkids, but
Mhm.
family's pivotal to me as well. So I appreciate you sharing that. So, Desiree, you've taken years of setbacks,
Mm.
disappointments, and successes and used them to fuel powerful yet simple lessons that will help anyone face their fears, crush their self limiting beliefs, and embrace their uniqueness.
Mhm.
Can you share with the listeners one of these lessons and how it can shape someone's life in the right direction?
Yeah. One of the biggest things, and it's going to sound so simple, is that we have the power to choose our attitude every day. That is a choice when we wake up in the morning that you that and when you think about it, that's so much power. You can wake up regardless of the circumstances and the details or the noise that's going on around you and say, today I choose to make it a great day. Today I choose to bring joy to the world. And I say that with conviction now because there were days when I was choosing otherwise. Those were the setbacks. And I had realized through those setbacks that it was still a choice, what I was going through, that I could still wake up and work through the hard stuff with an attitude and a sense of learning. And that, I guess that's, kind of part two of my comment is I've treated life like there's school that we go to, right? It's this structured place from probably childhood. Anybody who's listening has done something like that. And even if it wasn't like college after you went to some sort of primary or secondary school, maybe it was vocational school. There's some institutionalized place that had a structure. I look at life as school every day. When I think of some of the toughest things that I faced that there wasn't a handbook for, there wasn't a special book that I could turn to page 46, and read the third paragraph that told me this is what you need to do in this situation. I realized that it's not about seeking everything from outside because all of what we need is within us. And I had to learn it the hard way, like I said, because there's so much external seeking that we do that the more time I spent with myself, I realized that it was all within me. And I just had to harness that in those challenging moments that I faced in life.
I love that. That is, listeners, rewind to listen to that again. Like, honestly, we can choose. Like I woke up this morning and I always wake up before my alarm and I had a kind of a smirk on my face because I was excited for the day by choice. But I went to bed that way too. I was thinking, I can't wait till tomorrow morning. I can't wait till I get to speak to my friend Desiree and then a few other things that are going on in the day. But it is a choice. Attitudes, everything is attitude. People have heard that phrase so many times, but you take it to heart.
Mhm.
You get to choose. And as you mentioned, right, it's your choice if you want to work through the hard stuff or not. I think many of us, I've been there too. I still wake up and have imperfect starts to my day. Usually it's because I forget to do gratitude exercises or things to appreciate the fact that there's so many people in this world in strife and tribulations, and I'm just blessed to have a home, food in the fridge, kids that are supportive of me, friends, family, and just I'm alive.
Mhm.
There's people every second of the day that lose family members, go through trauma. I'm just blessed, right? Absolutely blessed. And I like the fact that you look at life as their school, right? That's a very powerful comment to say. I love that page 46, third paragraph. right?
I
That
mean,
just
because we search for it when you hit that brick wall, or there, your world comes crashing down. We want that. We want the quick fix because you want the pain to go away. You want to, quickly remove yourself from that, downtrodden, depressed, sad state. But sometimes, there is no light without darkness. There is no beauty without pain. So
absolutely.
the complement of having the moments of despair every now and then is also the appreciation for the moments of joy. It's a yin and a yang. And I think that is the beauty of life, is recognizing it's okay to have those moments. You just have to decide to not stay there. And I think one of the biggest challenges that we face as human beings is letting our past, dictate the future in a negative way, because we start saying to ourselves, well, I failed at that, so that just must be my destiny. That relationship didn't work, so I guess I'm bound not to ever love again. Once you start making really broad statements like that, it's a dangerous path to go down, because all those moments in time is a lesson. There was something, because it's not all bad. But I think the power becomes that we focus on what was negative instead of focusing on what went well. And I think relationships are a perfect example. When I
Absolutely.
when I tell people I've been through divorce, the immediate response that someone has is sadness around that. And I understand that, right? Because people think, a human emotion of a relationship status changing, to go from something that is so celebratory, because you think of marriage and you think of unity and you think of two people coming together. The word divorce and the connotation around it means the splitting apart, the breaking apart. So there's already baggage that comes with it. It's you, we create that environment, but just around the word. But what if you change the lens on it and you talked about it, that it was a transition, that it actually, there was so much beauty in it. There was so much learning from it. And now there's a new chapter that two people get to take everything that they learned and put their best foot forward, and now go into, the next part of their journey in a way that is, they only appreciate everything that they learned from another human being that was able to touch their lives for that time. And maybe, at least for me, I know in my second marriage, it was a much more mature way to manage than I was when I was in my 20s, because I thought I knew everything and I didn't know shit. I mean,
Absolutely.
it's one of those things where you just have to go through the motions and realize that it's what you make of it. Life is what you make of it. So, I think a lot of times we put too much weight on what everybody else thinks, and then also what the world, whether that's social media, whether that's turning on TV and listening to whatever that's saying. And at some point you have to turn all of that noise off and say, what do I think? What matters to me? Because at the end of the day, that is what you have to sit with, not what, some person on social media said, or, what some person on TV said. They're not in your lives every day. They're not living your life and walking in your shoes. So only you can decide that. So I think we have to take so much more ownership over the path that we take and the experiences that we have, and stop comparing ourselves to other people, because we live a unique life. I think when we're comparing in a way that says, oh, this person is doing this thing really well, I want to learn and grow and enhance that's a healthy, way to do it. But when you're beating yourself up because you're saying, oh, I didn't achieve that, oh, I didn't do that, and all my friends did, you're going nowhere quickly by doing
Well,
that.
it's the programming, because our brain is a giant computer. It doesn't know the difference between a truth and a lie. So we have to learn as a person to give ourselves what we believe to be the truth and surround ourselves with people that are giving us the truth instead of programming it. As you said, we live in the past and we relationships don't work and we beat ourselves up. A decision we make, we beat ourselves up, and we keep on saying that to ourselves. And the same experience comes up and we kind of are hesitant to approach that experience or that person or that thought because we're afraid. We've already programmed our brain to think it's a negative thing. And I think you and I talked about this on your podcast. The biggest thing that people need to start programming their brain is that they're never, ever, ever going to have a bad day again. Mm-hmm. My life completely pivoted and changed. And I coach that. And I have people now that are coaching other people that same thought process. And it wasn't something that I all of a sudden had an epiphany, woke up one day, oh, geez, I'm a working project. Right? I'm a working project the rest of my life till the last day to take a breath. But if I can make it so that every day that I have left on this planet before I go to the next chapter of my existence, that I never have a bad day, only have bad moments, things are going to be so much better. But that's a programming, listeners. You have to constantly tell yourself that. Mm-hmm. If you catch yourself telling somebody that, oh, I had a bad day, just wait, you know what? And it's okay to admit to people, you know what? I take that back. And people are going to be shocked because they're going to see a change in growth of you when you say, you know what, I take that back. I just had a bad moment. I didn't have a bad day. And then you force yourself to say, I had this happen good that day. This happened good. So let's take it one step farther. And let's not talk about the day. You mentioned divorce. You got to look at the beauty. I went through a divorce. I know what it's like. I've gone through broken relationships. And I think to myself, what good did I learn from that? What am I going to tell my brain? Am I going to tell it negative or am I going to tell it positive? It doesn't mean my brain's going to forget the negative, but that's part of who I am. I just choose to rise above that noise. So I really appreciate how you shared about that because there is such a negative connotation in regards to divorce, right? And
that little breakups, breakups in general. Oh my gosh, this isn't ending. Oh, what, and then you get the, all of the, well, why can't you just work it out? And what, everybody has an opinion. And I think that's why a lot of times when people are going through relationship challenges it is like this secret suffering in silence, because it is a decision that you ultimately have to make for yourself. It's not like by jury, right? It's not like there's exactly. a jury there. And then, you get a majority vote or something that,
doesn't work.
Yeah. People on the outside going, oh, okay, well, 72% say that, you should work it out. And, the other, it doesn't work that way. It'd be funny if you tried to do it like that. But, again, like I said, you're the person that has to live with it, and you have to own the decision. Because the thing too is people are going to judge you whether you're doing well or you're not. So that's why you have to not care anyways, because even in your best times, people will have a judgment about that just as much as they will the worst times. So you might as well do what you want, because either way, there's going to be something that someone has to say about it. So you might as well do it your way,
I agree, 100%.
And, the other thing is of this notion of constant learning. I mean, I had a mastermind call this morning, and one of the things that we've been spending quite a bit of time talking about is whether or not we're living in the gap or we're living in the gain. And we read this book. We finished it a little while back. It's by Dr. Benjamin Hardy and Dan Sullivan, called The Gap and the Gain. You could, listen to it on Audible or read it, whatever you want to do. And it talks about how, especially for A-type personalities and high achievers, high performance people are probably the worst individuals that live in the gap, meaning they're looking at where they want to be, looking at that next goalpost and thinking about how they're not there yet, everything that they need to do to get there, instead of celebrating the gain, which is how far they've come to get to where they are. And so one of the things that we're working on, and I would love to invite your listeners to do this thing with me, is to, from today going forward, write down 3 wins throughout the day. So most of the time we are thinking at the end of the day, all of the stuff you didn't accomplish. In some way, shape, or form, we're making a to-do list, whether it's mental or whether it's written or whether it's in electronic form, it's on your calendar. And a lot of times we look at it and go, oh my gosh, oh, I didn't get to this. I didn't get to that. I meant to call the dentist. I was supposed to do that. There was this, I mean, there's all, you just get on yourself,
People
all the
punish
stuff you didn't do.
themselves. They punish themselves too much.
But I mean, there was stuff that you did obviously throughout the day to get there. And there's a lot to celebrate, but we just don't look at it like that. So what are 3 things that you could pick out? Whether they're big or small, it could be that you exercised, and maybe it was for 20 minutes, but hey, you hadn't done that for the last 3 weeks. So, hey, that 20 minutes is something to celebrate today. Great. Maybe it's, having that tough conversation, some meeting that you needed to accomplish and you accomplished that. And maybe it was actually taking time for yourself, that you're celebrating, giving a pause and listening to a book or doing something like that for you. It doesn't matter what it is, but there's always something in your day that you can be proud of. And how different would it be if you went to bed thinking that, going back to what you just said a few minutes ago, that because you went to bed thinking a certain way, it influenced how you woke up. I mean, that's conscious thinking. And I think so much of our lives, we're living unconsciously because we're not making intentional decisions. But going back to my point about attitude is the same thing. If you think about what you've accomplished, that's an intentional choice. You're intending for that to be the focus. Therefore, your chemical balance that you have within you, the things that give you the joy, the dopamine, that thing that you get excited when someone likes on your post or something, or makes a comment and is like, oh my gosh, Dwight, I love that podcast episode. It's that dopamine hit. We can create those moments for ourselves. They don't always have to come from the outside, so that kind of goes back to we have so much control. This vessel that we're in, this being that we're in has so much power, and we give way too much freaking power to everything else. When we have that to harness within us, we just have to learn how to use this instrument. And it's limitless what we can do when we harness that energy in the right way.
Well, we're all unique. We're every one of us, like our fingerprints, and we discount the power that we have because we let the committee of the society rob us of it. And too many people blame society. Quit blaming society, blaming your family, blaming others. You need to take onus of your own life, take charge of it. And until you do, listeners, until you realize how powerful you can be. And I'm not saying any of the process that Desiree or I have been on is easy. Life isn't easy. Back to what Desiree was saying, when there's joy, there's sadness, but you can't have one without the other. And I wouldn't want it. So just realize that you have the seeds of greatness inside of you. You just need to find somebody to help you take the baby steps to water that so that you don't live on a hamster wheel, so that finally for once in your life, you feel empowered and that you're living life on purpose, not by accident. And again, doesn't mean there's not trials and tribulations throughout that process or that it's all going to stop. But you will always have the ability to be a critical thought processor, critical thinker, so that when trauma does happen, you have things within your emotional and mental toolbox to correct how you're thinking. Because you don't owe it to other people. People say, well, you owe it to your children. You owe it to this. You owe it to that. No, you owe it to yourself because you are worthy.
Yeah, you need to prioritize you. And I think that is one of the other big things is that we prioritize everything else. And when you're last on the list, well, guess what? You're not going to be treated, very well. You're getting the worst of you instead of the best of you. And I would say, going to your question about lessons, this is huge. And I want everyone to really hear this is who is the community that you choose to surround yourself with, because that question all by itself plays a substantial role of who you are and who you will become. Jim Rohn had a great point in saying that you're the sum of the 5 people that you spend the most time with. I mean, you could start right there. This doesn't have to be complicated. You don't have to go through every single person, but think about those 5 people. And do they, I came up with this phrase when I came out with my first podcast with a good friend of mine. We started a podcast 2 years ago called Bliss Beyond Fear, Faith, Elevate, Action, Results was our format. And we had this concept called savers. And it was, when you think about a person that's in your life, do they meet these criteria of being a saver? Do they support you? Do they align with you? Do they value add to your life? Do they elevate you? And do they rise with you? So that is the definition there, because you want somebody that's going to support your dreams. Think about that. If you just said today, okay, I think I want to run a marathon. I want to write a book, whatever that thing may be for you. And you've got somebody in your life questioning you. Well, why would you want to do that? That seems hard. Like, that seems like it's too much work. I mean, that person isn't supporting what you're trying to accomplish. They're questioning you, and they're putting some of their negative energy on your goals and your dreams. Well, that's the opposite of what, I mean, you want somebody that's going to help you maybe think through the steps, or help give you some resources and say, oh my gosh, I've got a friend who just ran a marathon. Let me link you up with them. I know a couple authors. Let me link you up with them. I mean, there are distinctive actions and behaviors of people around you that you can look up to and learn from. And if the people around you are giving you negative energy, are negative Nelly, always talking about woe is me, and I'm a victim, and all the things happen to me, not recognizing that most of the things that we have that happen in life are happening for you. They're happening for you to grow. They're happening for you to learn. They're happening for you to flourish. Then you should seriously question those people. And I'm not saying that you have to kick them out of your life, especially we're talking about like family members. It's not like, okay, I'm just going to kick my sister to the curb, or, your cousin, or your childhood friend that you grew up with. But what I'm saying is, not everyone needs a front row seat. Not everyone is meant to sit in the VIP section of your life. They might need to go to the balcony. They might need to be in the risers. They might need to be people that you spend a little bit less time with, because their juju is not the juju that you need in your orbit on a regular basis. But those are hard decisions sometimes that we have to make, because it's not, a relationship is not serving you in the way, or there's no reciprocity. If you're giving and you're listening and you're supporting and you're, providing resources, and it's not coming back in the other direction, it might be a little bit of a lopsided, one-sided relationship. And there's a place for that, because I think many of us want to be good people and help others. But I think, as I've gotten, more mature, that because I'm an empath by nature, and because I've had, the challenge of people pleasing and having to read books on boundaries, and, it's a double-edged sword sometimes, being in the seat of somebody who is an empath by birth, to do this kind of evaluation, because it means having to reposition people in your life. And that can be hard if it's something that you haven't done or haven't.
It's tough to break the programming from our origin, our childhood, to, like you were talking about your dad. You had some great programming from him, but then society gets involved. Then we get judged, as you said. People will comment on something, and it's all negative. We have to stop allowing others, whether it's one individual, a group, or society in general, dictating how we're going to think and our processes. And I realize, listeners, it's tough, because it's all about associations. And as you mentioned, Jim Rohn and the 5 people, but it's not just the 5 people in your life. Listeners, always remember, what are you listening to? What are you watching?
Mm.
What are you listening to? Not just what kind of a radio station do you listen to? What kind of music do you listen to? Are you gravitating toward negative music, negative TV shows, negative movies all the time? You are programming yourself to stay stuck in a rut and on a hamster wheel. Our associations are so outside of, and again, I'm not disrespecting Jim and his 5 people. It's true, but we have to elevate above that. Who are we talking to? Who are we allowing to be within our sphere? Like you said, should they be up in the bleachers or should they be on another continent? Should you just have them so far away from you that they're, I'm not saying that it's easy.
Nothing is easy. Nothing is easy.
Anything
if life was easy.
Everything in life, you see, the thing is, though, listeners, and Desiree will concur with this, the struggle is real. The win, the gain is real as well. And both have its place in your life. But if you learn to savor, one of the things I was going to mention about, you talked about the fact of celebrating. Listeners, if something does happen good in your day and you're able to take and do what I was talking about, only have bad moments and celebrate the good wins and write down 3 things, as Desiree had mentioned, your heart will be glad. You'll have a different level of joy. You'll just have a different level of aha. And you'll find I've had somebody tell me recently here when I spoke on the stage, in a few months ago, they came up to me and said, my gosh, you look so relaxed. I says, I was freaking terrified. What do you mean? Well, your shoulders were down. I said, well, I've had to even practice that. Because unconsciously, when we're tense and we're anxious, our shoulders are up. When our shoulders are up, it's been proven medically we don't breathe as properly either. We don't bring in enough. We're taking short breaths. We're not bringing enough oxygen. Guess what our brain likes? So there's different little things, listeners, that you can learn. Listen to this podcast, rewind what we've been talking about, take notes. There's so much that you can learn in little small baby steps. The thing you have to do is start changing your associations, the people, what you listen to, what kind of books. If you're always watching negative, listening to negative, surrounding yourself with negative, guess what? A good chance you're going to be stuck in the negative rut of life, and you're worthy. You deserve more. So Desiree is a performance improvement consultant, a certified coach and change management expert. You apply systems and processes that keep your clients on track. How is having systems and processes in place crucial to keep people on track to be successful and hold on to it?
If you don't measure, you have no understanding of how far you've come or how far you need to go. So one of the first things that I do, regardless of whatever type of initiative I'm pursuing with a client, is starting with where you are, because that's about as much as we know. And it's interesting because I'm having this recall back to the conversation we had on my podcast, where you talked about that in terms of finances with your clients. We know whether we're talking about finances, or in this case, if I'm talking about a hospital, they know what their employee satisfaction scores are today. They know what their patient satisfaction scores are today. They know how many falls they've had, or what percentage of readmission rates they've had. So there's a starting point. There's data to be collected, right? So the key is understanding where you are, so you understand where you want to go. And so the importance of that and looking at, okay, well, what is it going to take to move the needle? What does success look like? And that could be measured in chapters, because what success looks like in a year is different than what it could look like in 5 years if we set up going back to your point about systems. So the whole objective that I have is creating a system, and it comes down to, the numbers and everything. That's just the output. The biggest challenge in terms of human behavior and change is the behavior. It's the behavior that supports new outcomes. And it's this whole notion of, if you keep doing what you're doing, you're going to get what you've always got. So unless you try to do something different, you're not going to get a different result. And that's often the biggest epiphany when I'm working with clients is just that. is getting into the mindset of, well, what does different look like? And the scariness of different, of like, oh, well, gosh, what if it doesn't work? What if we try that and it doesn't work? What if we do this and it's scary because we've used this system for so long, and now we're going to automate or do something with technology that's just so uncomfortable because people have done it this way for so long. So the discomfort of change is a huge aspect of what I'm dealing with on a regular basis, whether I'm talking about an individual client, like one-to-one, or an organization where it's going to affect hundreds or thousands of people, change. But fundamentally, it's no different, because all change is, at the end of the day, is disruption. It doesn't matter.
Reprogramming.
Yeah. And it doesn't matter whether or not you perceive it as positive or negative. I could tell you, tomorrow that we're going to wear Hawaiian t-shirts every day. And one person might go, oh my gosh, that's awesome. That sounds like it's so fun and colorful. And one person might say, oh, that's terrible. That is way too much going on. I think it's tacky. It's horrible. I mean, so it doesn't, like one person might have a positive perception about it and another person might have a negative perception, but the whole point in human change is the why. And that's, so when I'm doing anything associated with process change and trying to get people to get different results, and it's a question that we ask every day in our lives with doing anything, is why? What is the why behind anything? And the answer is that anybody just wants is, what's in it for me? If I do this thing, is it going to make my job easier, faster, safer, higher quality? There's always something that people are hoping for to come out on the other end. And that's kind of the motivation of why they keep on pushing. So those are the kinds of things that I'm, looking at and helping people to make like really broad changes, is helping them to get to a point of why what's happening makes sense, that there's some benefit in it, and that there's behaviors that support it, and that there's measurements that are going to help us to say whether we're meeting the mark or we're falling short.
Wow. Yeah, that's it. You listeners, are so many great nuggets of information of what Desiree just shared. Too much that to even dissect it and to reiterate what she was saying. I'd highly suggest you listen to that again. Just realizing though that disruption's not bad, reprogramming's not bad. What is bad is if you're trying to do it on your own, you're always going to fall back down into the valley of despair. You need to find the tribe of people to surround yourself with that are going to uplift you, that are going to, those people aren't going to be perfect. They're going to the odd time say something that you might take negatively, but in majority of your life, you should have a surrounding of people that are always going to know how to be a wordsmith, to say things to support you. They could say something that is, still not necessarily the most positive, but it's a corrective statement, but they know how to say it so that it'll help. It's still uplifting, but it's also corrective action. So, we need to understand that we all, the rest of our lives, need to have some form of reprogramming and disruption. You're going to get to a point where it's less and less. You're going to have those bad moments, but much of what Desiree talked about can make a difference in your life. One of the things I will add before we move on here is always remember, because you talked about fear. Listeners, I teach this all the time. Start looking at things differently. Never let fear embrace and control you. Start telling yourself every time you feel fearful, face everything and rise. In the last couple of days, I had a fearful moment about something, and I literally, my brain, I've reprogrammed it. I disrupted my thought process, face everything and rise, and it literally dissipated my fear. And I'm not saying there's not real fear out there. Like, if a lion's chasing you or a bear, you've got fear going on. And,
Oh, yeah.
that's a different type of fear, but don't be fearful that you can't change. Desiree and I have both gone through lots of trials and tribulations, and we're here to tell you you're worthy. We had other people tell us that we were worthy or give us the impression we were worthy. We embraced it, and we've been working projects for I don't know how many years, except the fact that I do know we're going to constantly be on the climb. No more camping for us ever in our lives. Moments, maybe, but longevity, days, weeks, months, never again. So, Desiree, with a degree in political science and healthcare and social issues, you are well versed and able to tackle the issues that plague our society today. What are some of the key issues facing our society today that you see?
Oh my gosh. What isn't an issue today?
That's a great answer, though. It's true.
It's true. I mean, we could talk about the political climate, or we could talk about COVID-19, and we could say the vaxxers and the anti-vaxxers. Here's the biggest thing. Here's a common denominator, a common thread is divisiveness. And it's remember that it's intentional. Okay. So when you decide that you're going back to what you said about, what are you listening to? What are you watching? What are you paying attention to? The news in America is designed to be divisive because it's making you pick a side. Are you, and I mean, just try it. If you and don't do it for too long, because I wouldn't want you to do it for more than like 3 minutes. But if you turned on any news station, you would be thinking to yourself, oh, so which side am I? Am I conservative? Am I a progressive person? Am I, vax person, or am I an anti-vax person? Those are the wrong questions. They're the wrong questions. And that's why I don't watch the news. I don't do that. I go to as much bipartisan information that I can, where I just read sound bites so I get the headline, because you don't want to be ignorant. But I listen to podcasts. I listen to and I like to try to understand the sides of everything, because there's always a story to be told, regardless of what type of side somebody is representing. So, nothing is one dimensional, nothing is one sided. And if we really looked at it, there's probably like 20 sides, depending on what angle. So, I think the better lens is what brings us together. Because really what we want is health and equity, right? We want health, a healthy society. We want, I like to believe, and this is where different opinions come in. I like to think that we want, equal opportunities and those kinds of things. I think the way we come at them is different, but we're mostly fighting for the same things. So when I think about what I studied in school, when I look at healthcare, or I look at even epidemic, I looked at epidemiology when I was in school, and there's politics around everything. You have to cut through the noise of the whole picking sides of stuff and get to the humanity, and that's where some of those basic principles come into play. Are you listening to your neighbor? Are you looking for opportunities to lend a helping hand? It takes common sense for us to figure out that somebody is struggling, and we can, if you have the means, whether it's a little bit of money or a little bit of time that you could lend, those are the kinds of things that are going to change society. The reason I decided to do things like volunteer for the Red Cross is it's because it's something tangible. I might not be changing the world, but in the action of doing volunteer work, and in that moment of time, being able to help somebody whose house just got on fire and they lost everything. I know I'm a stranger to you. I don't know you from Bob, but I know what it's like to have pain. I know what it's like to lose something. And if I could be here in this time of need to provide you with just a little bit that can give you some solace in this moment, that's what we need to be thinking about as human beings. Is how can we help each other, and you have to turn your common sense skills on to not get caught up in the divisiveness that is ever present, whether you're looking at social media or media as on the TV screen.
Yeah, there's wow. It is so true, though, that we are a society that is constantly turning on decisiveness, right? forcing us unintentionally, sometimes intentionally, to pick sides. And really, there's no side. There's compassion, there's caring, and being a fellow empath. I totally, once I embraced that, realized that I've always been a person of service and wanting to help uplift others. As you said, be cognizant of it, be aware of it. And if I can say and help somebody have a better moment in their day, and listeners, it can be as simple as going to a local grocery store or a local gas station or convenience store and just smiling in that person and say, how are you doing? I hope you're having a great day. Wow, those are amazing earrings. Wow, that's an amazing necklace. I like your tie. I like your shirt. Be genuine and sincere when you say it. But you could be the one catalyst moment in their day of happiness, and they can ride that wave the rest of their day. I've had people say, I had somebody I was having a miserable day, because that's so many of us are programmed to talk like that. And somebody was kind to me. Somebody give me, I know a lot of servers. I got a great tip, and it just made, and their comment, thank you for the great service. And they also, enforced that and backed it up with a good tip. And it didn't matter that the next 5 tables were a bunch of jerks. I had somebody believe in me, somebody that was kind, compassionate, and recognized my talent to being a good servant of others. So I really appreciate that. So Desiree, how important is goal setting to helping people to get where they want to be? And what does this process look like?
It's vital. Only I think the most recent statistic that I read is there's only 3% of people who actually set goals. And that's the reason why there is such a disparity today. And, and I'm not a goal can be small or a goal can be big. The fact of the matter is just doing it, and not making it a one-time deal. So this is generally what happens. Being at the beginning of the year, people tend to be better at this because you've got the whole vibe of the New Year's resolution. I'm gonna lose the 10 pounds. I'm gonna save the money for the vacation. I'm gonna, pick your category, and we get ambitious about it. And that's a great start. I'm not knocking it. I think that's awesome. If that's something that you've done already, kudos to you for even beginning, right? It's the sustaining where we get off track. Because if I was asking you this question on, July 30th, would you be saying the same thing? How is that 10 pounds going? How is that? Did you go on that trip yet? I mean, it's easy to lose sight. So I recommend in the goal setting process, if you're looking for a place to start with monthly. Start with monthly. There's only 12 months. So you're talking about bite-sized chunks. I didn't say weekly. I know there's 52 weeks. That might feel like a little daunting, but there's something monthly that we can say. And I also say, look at your life like a pie. There's all these different pieces that we have, and some pieces are more valuable to others, but generally there's, something financial in there. If you're a spiritual person or if that matters to you, your social, your fun, your career, so there's those different slices of pie. There's, probably anywhere from 5 to 8 things that we could pick out. And, you just do a quick assessment. How am I doing on these fronts, and what attention needs to get paid to an area that maybe I've been neglecting? My health doesn't feel the greatest. I feel lethargic. I feel kind of crummy. Maybe this month I do need to think about my diet and exercise just a little bit more, because I'm not feeling so great about it. Then you work on that. Okay, the next month we're doing the finances. We're looking at where's the money going? Where is it not going that it needs to be going? Right? Like we have a lens that we can put on these different pieces of our lives, but you have to pay attention to them. You can't neglect, because that's the other thing, is the balancing act, where we're doing so well on certain things and our relationships are crap. Oh, when was the last time you called one of your best friends? When's the last time you visited with somebody, even if in this pandemic, even if it was on Zoom, even if it was a phone call, like we have a state of equilibrium or a balance that we know when things are running on all cylinders, but it's really easy for one of those cylinders to kind of fall by the wayside. So if we're at least doing a monthly assessment and honing in on what needs some attention, that's a great place to start with goal setting, and put it on paper, make it real, write it down. It's anything in your head can just go away. It's here and it's gone. When you commit to something by putting it into the universe and then going so far, and this might be a little bit scary, you might not be ready for this step yet, but share it. Dwight and I just talked about being in a mastermind. Do you know how freaking vulnerable it is to share with other people that, oh gosh, I have this goal of paying off this debt, or I have this goal of saving up, 50 grand for X, Y, and Z. When you put that out there in the universe and other people are now holding you accountable to your crap, well, guess what? The likelihood of those things happening is probably higher because you now have a jury that is, put keeping you to task. And so that kind of combines what we said earlier in the podcast about who you keep around you, because they'll hold you accountable. But this stuff with goal setting does not have to be complicated. It can be as simple as writing 3 things down every month that you want to accomplish and sticking to it.
Absolutely. I appreciate that. Listeners, definitely reach out to Desiree. I like how she explains goal setting. And, one of the things that is the most profound, all of it was profound, but the most profound for me is that you need to share it with others. If you aren't willing to share what you want to achieve, whether it's a small goal, a large goal, your chances of success are really non-existent, because you're not going to feel that you have to get anything accomplished because you don't have any eyes watching you. And that may sound a little intimidating, but when I say eyes watching you, when Desiree and I are both in different masterminds, those people, good, bad, and ugly, have seen me, for an example, this last year, talk about specific things. They've seen me emotional. They've seen me happy. And they'll bring up stuff 2 weeks later or in the next couple hour call and say, how is this going? Where are you at? And a good facilitator of a mastermind is going to be asking you questions. What's your energy level? What's your wins for the day? What happened in the last 2 weeks? Okay, you said all this stuff last time. They're going to be taking notes and they're going to say, how did this happen?
And they do.
What went good on this, right? And it's not hard to run a mastermind. You just have to have a kind, empathetic person running that mastermind that knows when to take the reins, but knows when to loosen it a little bit and let you either win or temporarily hang yourself. That may sound harsh, but it's true. So this leads up into one of my last questions. With health and fitness, wellness, and fun being at your core, you live an intentional work-life balance every single day. Based on your own experiences, you developed your own work-life balance and now teach others to do the same. What does a healthy work-life balance look like? And can you share any specific success stories in this regards?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, the first thing, it's going to sound really simple too, is like, listen to your body, listen to yourself. If you've been sitting for 7 hours straight on Zoom calls and you haven't stood up and you feel lethargic, you probably need to do something different. I mean, so some of it is the cues that we just take from listening to ourselves. And that is just a natural thing to do. I think developing a healthy routine, whatever that looks like for you, is in order. So I'll use myself as an example just to tell you, because what this looks like for me 5 years ago is different than what it looks like for me today. Because I'm a person who has multiple businesses, I don't have the same amount of time to do certain things, so for my 90 minutes in the gym is kind of, those days are gone, because like I can't find 90 minutes to do one consistent thing, for very much when you're switching hats from one business to the next and figuring out how to grow something and solving all these different problems. So for me, my balance comes in smaller snippets, but they're powerful ones. So in the morning, I've got this yoga wheel and I take it out and I'm telling you, like 3 minutes of stretching on that thing. And maybe it's just because I'm getting older and my back hurts and stuff. Maybe that's it, but it doesn't have to be these monumental things. And sometimes I think when we say, oh, self-care, wellness, balance, it means like, it's like, oh, that sounds like work. And I don't have time for that. That sounds awful. But if it's like those 3 minutes in the morning for stretching, and then like at least 30 minutes, probably 3 times a day. So I'm very intentional about this, but self-development is critically important to me. So I'm listening at least once in the morning, once in the middle of the day in between meetings, and then at least once in the evening. I'm listening to something that I'm learning. It could be an audiobook. I always have an audiobook or a podcast ready to go, because if I'm not learning, I'm not growing. Bottom line, like that's a big part of my wellness, is the intellectual, growth and learning. So for me, that's something that is my, balance, and some form of movement. So like I mentioned before, for me in a different time, it would have been like the 90 minutes actually in the gym. And now it could be the 20-minute walk, or it could be the 20 minutes in the gym. And that's totally enough. But for me, some sort of active motion where I'm out of the element of a computer screen, and there's fresh air involved, is an important thing for me. So for my routine, it's been, finding the movement, finding the intellectual stimulation, and it's those moments, and, for someone else that could look different, but I think it's listen to your body, listen to what it's telling you that you need. And for the longest time, I was like, sleep, who needs that? Like, ever since I was in college, I have operated on the 3-hour. I don't know how. I don't know if I could be some sort of scientific case study. But I legitimately thought that for the rest of my life, like all you needed was a 3-hour nap and you'd be fine. I could take my final. I could write a paper. But that doesn't work. That is not sustainable. So the other thing I would throw in there, is that sleep is important. If you feel like you need to take a nap, if you feel like your body is depleted, getting those couple extra hours of sleep, when you can, and if you can do it consistently through the night for 8 hours, that would be ideal. I get that that's not, if you're an entrepreneur like us, maybe that's not the case every day, but don't neglect that. Then that is not something that I would have been saying 5 years ago. I would have been like, whatever, sleep, you don't need that.
Wow. It just goes to show how life can change in 5 years, right?
Yeah.
Right. And you know what? Vulnerability and honesty, back to that know, like, and trust. Listeners, if at the end of this, if you don't know, like, and trust Desiree, start over, listen to it again, because she's an amazing individual. And I have to agree with so many things you talked about here. Your balance and small snippets. Sleep's important. I've got to a point, I had somebody ask me a couple of days ago, I was talking to this lady friend of mine, and she says, well, how do you do things? I said, well, I told her some of my processes. And I said, I always aspire. I've got my watch, my Apple Watch. I wear it at night. It tracks my sleep. And I've seen, since I've changed my habits, even how my heart rate has changed when I'm sleeping. I literally have it. I need 7 hours of sleep. Do I always get it? No. Do I get 8 hours of sleep? No. My body wakes me up before, no matter when I go to bed, my body wants me up at a certain time, even if I set an alarm. But sleep is critical. And I found that when I stopped being that person, I was similar to you, 3 hours, right? It would be nothing for me to get up at 6 a.m. and work until 2 a.m.
Yep.
And then get 4 hours if I was lucky, 4 hours
over and over again.
And it was like an automaton. I was like a robot. And I just, and I thought, oh, I'm slaying it, and I'm killing it, and I'm going to be I'm going to achieve success more than a person next to me. And you know what? You're going to have people in your life, listeners, that are telling you that. Cut them out of your life. You do you. Find somebody that's going to help you with that balance that Desiree talks about. But there were so many great nuggets of information. Like, my goodness, if this isn't a calling card for Desiree and what she can do for others, like, we've learned so much in this last hour, and I so appreciate you sharing so many nuggets of great information. So Desiree, if you had to give our listeners one last closing message, what would you tell them in regards to giving a heck and never giving up?
Oh man. The message I would say is the message that you would go to my website and see it, is to be unapologetically you. And what I mean by that, I mean, maybe that is summing up everything we just talked about for the last hour, is believe in who you are. So often we're waiting for the people that we want validation from to tell us, you are awesome, you are great. And sometimes that day does not come. There are people that I've met in my life that I've had so much respect for, and I've been waiting for them to see me. You need to see you. You need to wake up and look in the mirror and see you. It's great when, that professor or that friend or that entrepreneur that you looked up to compliments you and sees the types of things that you're doing in the world and the good work that you're doing. But if you don't see it, it doesn't mean anything, because that's what matters, is how you see you. And being unapologetically you means thinking for yourself, formulating your own opinions, even if sometimes it's not the popular one. I say that with so much passion because we are all unique. None of us were born to be somebody else. You were born as you. That's how beautiful is that? There is nobody in the world right now, as we're listening to this podcast, recording this episode, that is you, only you. That's freaking special. You need to harness that and own it and embrace it. And furthermore, be proud of it. Don't have that moment where you look at yourself and if you're feeling ashamed, if you're feeling down, if you're feeling less than, let today be the day that you stop that crap. Let today be the day that you look in the mirror and say, I love who I am, including the flaws, including the mistakes, including the things that I wasn't at one point proud of. You know why? Because I learned from it. I've grown from that. That happened to me, but that's not who I am. That was just a moment in time, that it was an opportunity for me to learn. That's all it is. It's an opportunity for me to learn and to get better and to grow. So that is my message, is to be unapologetically you.
That's amazing. That's a great message. And it is so true. We have to be unapologetically ourselves and quit letting everybody else define who we are, who we were in the past, who we were going to be in the present. Just live your most unique self and look for those out there, that association of people and what you ingest into your mind. Even what you were talking about, that, in the balance, you listen to stuff 3 times a day. I myself listen to other podcasts. I listen to my own podcast now. I have such a plethora of information and phenomenal people like you that I do. Sometimes, depending on the mood I'm in, I'll be cooking supper or I'll be doing something else, and I'll grab my phone or I'll tell my Google to play something, and it'll be one of my podcasts, or it'll be a podcast I've been on. And it's not because I'm, egomaniac, or, I'm a person that wants to, I remember what Desiree talked about. I need to hear that again. I need to give myself that mental kick in the ass, right? And so, listeners, never be a person that is constantly apologizing for wanting to level up and climb. So I really appreciate that answer. That is amazing. And I appreciate your time as well. I want to respect our listeners' time as well. And what is the best way for people to reach you, Desiree?
The best way is bornunbreakable.com is my website. It's also Born Unbreakable on Instagram, and it's pretty consistent everywhere. The cool thing is if you go to my website, there's all the little icons of how to reach me at any other place. So that's probably a good one-stop shop for you. I try to keep things pretty easy because life is too complicated. So I like to be a place that people go and it's not too complicated. So born unbreakable pretty much everywhere.
I agree 100%. And listeners, you can go to giveaheck.com/podcast and you'll be able to check out the show notes and all the links and everything and how to access Desiree and her phenomenal teachings will be there so that you can reach out and never be sad the rest of your life. You have an opportunity, you have a choice to be unapologetically you, the unique version that, for me, because I'm a God-fearing, that God wanted you to be. He wanted you to be a servant of others, but as well serve yourself and in the best way possible. And sometimes that takes you taking a little baby step and before you start running. So I appreciate you being on, Desiree. Thanks so much for being on Give a Heck. I appreciate your time and sharing some of your experiences so that others too can learn it is never too late to give a heck. Thank you for taking time out of your day and listening to Give a Heck. If you find value, I'd appreciate you sharing with your friends and family so they too can learn how to live life on purpose, not by accident. So you do not miss the next episode, please subscribe on your favorite podcast platform and please also post a review. I look forward to reading your comments. This has been Dwight Heck. If you want to check out other podcast episodes or today's show notes, please check out my website, giveaheck.com. And until next time, together let us all strive to give a heck.